There's no discrimination. It does not know a face.
They don't have the same like social abilities.
It's not just something like strep throat.
How severe those disabilities are really range widely across the spectrum.
He was 3, right?
Yeah.
And it was first kind of brought up to us by our family, but we pretty much knew, you know, something was different, but we just thought we were first-time parents that maybe each kid is, you know, different.
He didn't start walking till he was like 17 months, and his speech was somewhat delayed. One of our good friends, her mom used to watch Tyler, and a couple times just, you know, made comments, you know, kind of like, oh, he kind of acted a little different when we went to go see that train and wasn't very responsive. And as first-time parents, you're just like, whatever, you know, you don't want to think that that's your kid.
As more and more people came up to us and said, you know, this is, you might want to take a look at this is, you know, and so we had him tested and he was diagnosed with autism.
We knew that something was wrong, so it wasn't like we were so shocked, but once you hear it, it is, you know, you are a little surprised.
I know that like fans and things of motion are very fascinating for children with autism, and when he was a newborn, that was one thing that really made him calm him down. In our old house, we had a ceiling fan, and so I would be like, Tyler, are you autistic?
My sister actually did some research. A lot of the things that Tyler did, she said that, you know, that really kind of coincides with the same symptoms.
His social skills don't interpret things right, even though, you know, he says kids are making fun of him, which probably does happen quite a bit of time, but even when they're not making fun of him, he thinks they are making fun of him.
He's always watching the same movie over and over again. Like, he asked us if we have this movie. I'm like, no, you've watched it already. Like his little sister. Okay, we've watched the movie, comes back an hour later, wants to watch it again.
Sometimes, you know, teaching him to do some things that he's not able to do, he would just, you know, get upset and not want to try.
Tyler's really sensitive when it comes to like rough housing and stuff like that, where, you know, he's sensitive to touch.
Not last winter, but the winter before, I took, there's 4 of the kids, Devante and Jada and Tyler and Mira, and we went downtown St. Paul to the little winter event they had there. And we were all walking away from where we were sitting having hot chocolate, and all the kids were in a line, and I turned around, and I didn't, you know, turn around for more than 10 seconds, and I turned back around and Tyler was gone.
It's kind of like dealing with a 4-year-old a lot of the times.
He was at the end of the line, and I'm like, oh, you know, where did he go, you know? And so that fast, he was already walking down the street, you know, and so I'm like, Devante, go run and get Tyler.
And every time he sees a little race car on TV, he just watches it. He just stares at it and he never leaves.
Even at the basketball games, the kids like to run around, you know, but you're always kind of, you know, trying to keep your eye on them, like, where are they?
He doesn't really like spiders all that much. So if you tell him, hey, Tyler, there's a spider on the wall, look out, he'll be very afraid and look up, and you'd be kidding. And yet 2 minutes later, you'd say, hey, Tyler, there's a spider on the wall again. He'd fall for it again and again.
With Mira, you know, she's made the benchmarks that any regular functioning child should make. So to us, she was like, oh my gosh, she's so smart. And not that Tyler isn't smart, but it was amazing to see her, you know, talking and walking at the milestones that she should, and not 6-7 months later like Tyler was. It's kind of hard for him to integrate with other kids, just because he doesn't quite pick up on all the social cues. We've tried to talk to Tyler and tell him that he's autistic, but it doesn't seem like it really sinks in. It's just hard to find things that he can be part of and still feel like a kid. We saw that he wasn't being very verbal at age 2 when he was supposed to.
Large groups of people, unfamiliar people, could cause him to act a certain way. We found that transitions in the morning, getting him dressed was just painful. Jenny had problems like maybe going to or leaving a store.
A sizable proportion of individuals who were described as having autism would have communication disabilities.
He would repeat things a lot, the verbal skills were not there, and I would ask him, do you want a cookie? And he'd say, want a cookie.
People are now identifying what they refer to as red flags or early markers.
Our biggest red flag before he was ever even diagnosed was getting haircuts. He would just lose it. He would get so anxious. And each progressive haircut got worse and worse and worse.
The third area that characterizes individuals with autism is having repetitive movements.
The hand flapping, he probably did a little bit, and I just thought it was cute. He would get excited about things and his hands would flap.
We have friends who have children the same age, and they just were not going through these things.
That's when we went to the pediatrician at his 3-year checkup, and we just said, these are the things. And she didn't quite know exactly what it was, but she just sent us in the right direction. He was diagnosed with sensory processing disorder. And he started getting better with some therapies and things like that. And we kept thinking that there was something else not quite right. Almost a year later, he had some testing done at the school, like a pre-kindergarten type of a test. And that's when they told us that it was pretty likely that he was on the spectrum.
There were things that made us suspect it. But again, with the sensory processing disorder, we thought maybe that was, the cause of the majority of his problems.
The diagnostic standards that tend to be used are literally that, a collection of behavioral characteristics, and it's literally whether you have a sufficient quantity of those behavioral characteristics.
There are obviously people with autism that have sensory processing issues, and then there are those with sensory processing disorder that don't have autism. So it's kind of where we were. That's what we were hoping for a little bit, but we kind of knew that there was something.
There are a lot of individuals who have characteristics that would be somewhat similar to individuals who have autism, but they don't have a sufficient collection of those characteristics to technically be described as autistic.
He lined up the cars. That was the other thing.
Or the little people, he'd line them up in a line.
They're perfectly set apart. They were not even like a centimeter off.
Kids with autism have a propensity to not be quite as good at a skill that involves joint attention.
He really liked Tiger Woods, and they'd break, on TV they'd do a slow motion breakdown of the swing, and he'd just study it. And then we found him with the TV off, watching his reflection in the TV, and almost exactly mimicking his swing, to the point where if you looked at his swing, it is technically a sound swing because he was able to so successfully mimic what he had seen.
If all of a sudden I were to look over there, right, even though there was nothing over there that got your attention, you would also glance over there. Learners with autism tend to be less apt to do that often.
And he will periodically obsess on a certain book or a certain movie.
Autism spectrum disorders tend to look at communicative aspects of the disorder, intellectual areas of impairment, potentially, and repetitive movement.
He will watch a scene on the TV, and then he always wants to be the one with the remote. And then he rewinds it, and he can watch a scene over and over and over again, to the point that it just drives us crazy. Like, Turner, just let it play. Turner, just let it play. We knew something wasn't right, and for us it was kind of a relief. Like, now we know. Now we know what we can do, and I said it doesn't change who Turner is. I just want to know how he thinks, how he learns. I want to know how to help him.
We
we wanted to host a grand opening event that also can help communities and help other organizations. It's a great event for the staff in the sense that we get to do stuff we don't do on a daily basis and contribute to a great cause, the Autism Society of Minnesota.
In the classes that I have, the Susie Buckman, who is the manager of details, her son was in one of my classes, and we became friends, and she asked if we could do something like this.
It seemed like something that, from a personal standpoint, seems to need to get a little more attention, and then we found out after the fact that it was Autism Awareness Month in April, so that even made more sense.
We are members of the Autism Society, and he does attend Eagle's Nest group there, several times a year, and it's like 6-week programs, which is a social group there, which has been great for him also to kind of learn about social cues and how to handle yourself in certain situations.
The groups are very structured. We have a routine to follow every time. The skills that we work on are a variety of skills in communication, how to start a conversation, what to say to a friend. We also work on social skills.
Tyler's gone through 2 camps through them last summer and then the Eagle's Nest, and I would say it definitely, within months I saw changes with him understanding bullying and stuff like that.
They were overnight camps, and I think it helped him, kind of figure out where he is and how he's going to be independently without us.
He's a very sweet boy and very willing to try new things and to communicate.
We both have sisters, and it's been fine. They've all been very supportive.
What can we do to help, is kind of your first thought. He gets along with us very well. From a very early time, Tyler really became attached to Devante. I don't know why, but they just really connected.
The reason why I think Tyler got attached to me a long time ago is because I was like usually the only kid that was around him a lot, and that I guess I kind of taught him that he can do whatever he wants to do no matter what.
Tyler just looked up to Devante so much, so he wanted to be around him a lot, and so he would always be so excited, still today.
We play a lot of the same video games, because I had a video game, and he liked the video game so much that he ended up being the same video game as me. I have to say that he has beat me in a couple games.
We're so close to our families that he's got cousins, Tracy's kids, and then my older sister, her kids. And so to Tyler, that's family and friends. That's, he's very close to his 4 or 5 cousins.
You need to know how to treat him and maybe interact with him. So it's just a little different with guys, just have a little bit more harder time with that.
He's changed a lot over the last 4 years or whatever, and I've got along with him back then, and I'm still getting along with him now, so I'm guessing that I'll still get along with him in the future.
It's been a great support for us as parents and for Tyler.
She had an interest because of her son in supporting autism, the Autism Society, and this is the way that she and her family did it.
From the Autism Society's perspective too, I think we've had great support from that organization as well, which is good.
This is a wonderful event to reach out to the community and have them see what we're about face to face rather than just a news article or something on TV.
Part of Detail's whole philosophy is to give back to communities that we are getting from, in essence. And various organizations will be beneficiaries. Autism is a great organization. We'd love to do it again. It's been a great event.
You talk about trying to make that connection with your kid and doing different things that can really help?
There are a number of large advocacy and research groups that are doing a really good job of disseminating information about autism. Autism Speaks is one of those organizations. That organization has amazing videotapes where you can go into their website, you can pull up a page, it will show video clips of two kids, one typically developing, one kid who has autism. They're both engaged in the same activities, and simultaneously you can bring those tapes up and just visualize some of the differences around a common activity.
It didn't take me very long to understand that people needed a lot of information. So our Autism Society has been very committed to doing parent education programs. We have a program called the Discovery Series for parents, but also we do a lot of teacher training events.
One of the most useful things to visit with them about is to get them in a group of other parents with children who have autism.
The biggest thing that has really helped us is when Turner started over at Early Childhood Special Ed, they have a parents' night that they do once a month.
Just having another, group of parents that know exactly what you're talking about, it goes a long way. And you can share ideas. You can, learn things from them, and they can learn things from you.
All school districts will have resources available to parents.
I've bonded with some moms there, and I think that will be a lifelong friendship for sure, because when I have issues with Turner, I call them. Because even though I have other friends, they don't know exactly what I'm going through. And I can just say, I've had a hard day, and they know exactly what that means.
We also run support groups for parents and have a variety of support groups that we do. And we have every day an information referral line available to people who call and want information about autism.
You call each other, you email each other, and
whatever it takes. Play dates.
Yeah, I mean, but if there's a show on television that deals with autism, we'll all know about it. If we find out about it, we'll email, or they'll tell us. Like sometimes there's a thing on the news, or there's been
YouTube.
Yeah.
In Minnesota, services begin for kids who have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder starting at birth. And so that's really incredible. There is support from the school district as soon as that child is identified for service.
I think we've just hit our 1 year mark that he's started preschool. I mean, he would barely leave my side, and now he is riding the bus on his own and going to school on his own.
We've started thinking about how can I replace some of the challenging behaviors that some individuals with autism engage in with socially more acceptable behaviors.
He has a lot of interaction with his peers who are not on the spectrum, and I think that's good. A few months away, he's going to be in a classroom full of typical kids, and he's going to have to learn how to interact and to integrate with them and to socialize with them.
I think with my mom it was a little harder, the actual word and the diagnosis. I think that was hard for her to hear because she saw a lot of the red flags even when I didn't.
I think when most people hear the term autism spectrum disorders, they pretty much just think individuals who have autism.
She's really, really supportive. So, she gives me a break when I need it, because it can be really, really draining. That's what we found. You're just exhausted at the end of the day sometimes. So, to have somebody that is, a phone call away.
I think when people first get a diagnosis for a little child, they're really concerned. They don't know anything about it, and they think, gee, what's going to happen in 20 years? How is this person going to grow up and fit into society? And what they need to do is kind of settle down and think, what can we do right now?
I'm very excited because he still wants to be social, and I think to have him desire that is a huge gift.
There's absolutely been an explosion of awareness in the last couple of years, and that's really a great thing.
When you just look at news magazines, Time and Newsweek, major magazines have all done pieces on autism or autism spectrum disorders.
I see little bits and pieces about it, whereas before I would probably just, not really pay attention. I really have an interest in it.
One of my best friends sends me little clippings here and there all the time in the mail.
And as far as my family is concerned, I'm initially at first, maybe they weren't sure how to react to it, but what I've noticed is they want to learn about it. They want to understand it.
Once you get on Oprah and Larry King, you're into public awareness with the general public, and that's a huge difference.
One of the challenges is when you do searches for autism, you are now so flooded with information that in part the challenge is to sort out the really informative information.
Like they had this Dr. Phil and I was very disappointed, and then they had the Oprah and it was just so positive, and when Jenny McCarthy was on there, it kind of gave everybody a little bit of a boost.
There's more out there than people realize.
In the 70s and 80s and 90s, in most cases, if a person had a child diagnosed with autism, or an individual had autism himself, and he tried to explain this to someone else, people would say, what is that?
If you go to a public school these days and you visit with third or fourth graders, they'll be familiar with kids who have developmental disabilities.
Now it's really something that many people know about, and that awareness has really helped families and individuals, and it's really driven programs forward.
Sometimes on the radio, you hear people kind of discussing, why are the numbers so high now as opposed to, how they say 20 years ago.
The Center for Disease Control currently says that about 1 in 150 kids would be diagnosed with autism, which is dramatically higher if you're an older individual like myself. I can remember the time when the same organization said 1 in 250 kids.
I've just become a lot more vocal in telling everybody, it can come out in like a 1-minute conversation at the park with a mom. So when they watch it on the news and they hear 1 in 150, what does that mean? Well, now that means Turner.
It is an alarming rate which needs to be addressed.
If Tyler wouldn't have, been diagnosed or, been a part of our family, I would have never known, probably never had an interest really, because it didn't affect me or anyone I knew.
It's an experience that, unless you experience it, you don't really know.
One thing that you learn is there's an incredible range of individuals who are described as having autism spectrum disorders, and it's not good to get into too tight of a stereotype.
They're in the spectrum, but they're so different in that spectrum.
You have to be so patient, and Ronnie and Susie do such a good job with Tyler.
For our friends and family, they've all been great and very supportive.
I see just an endless amount of patience and an overwhelming positive outlook from those families, and that's inspiring. It should be inspiring for everyone.
One of the first times he answered the phone when I called, and it was so sweet that you could tell like he really either was practicing or he knew exactly what to do when he answered the phone. And I said, Tyler, it's Auntie Tracy. And he's like, oh, Auntie Tracy, and he was so excited, and it's just so cute.
We paid out of pocket, for speech and OT, but it was definitely worth it before he even was diagnosed.
I really think that Tyler's going to be successful because of the strides I've seen him make so far.
I really don't like that people make fun of him, which I don't like that because it's not his fault that he has that problem.
I see where he's been, in the last 6 years and how he's grown so much, and I'm sure in the next 6 years there'll even be more advances in his life.
The biggest thing I'd recommend is that you're going to be okay. That this is a child you're really going to be able to raise and enjoy. And this child is going to make a lot of progress.
Just treat them just like any other kid should be treated, and if you know them for a while, you really get along with them.
I would say, "Good night, Turner, I love you," and then it would be quiet, and then I'd say, "Turner, say love you, Mommy," and then he would say it, and then when he just out of the blue said it, that was a really big deal, because it makes all those really hard days worth it.
He's saying it, and he's saying it at appropriate times, and his actions and his facial expressions and the way he says it, you can tell he means it. He'll touch your face and say he loves you.
I think sometimes people's stereotype is that if you have autism spectrum disorders, your educational, career will ceiling out pretty quickly, and that's probably not a good mindset.
You celebrate the small successes as well as the larger successes, and like Jay said, that may seem like a simple thing to most parents, but to actually have a conversation where you connect with your child, that would be a really big deal.
He has just come so far, so I really try not to put any limits on him.
Through that broadening of information, what we've achieved is much more acceptance. And I expect that acceptance and understanding will continue.
As parents, if that's what we understand, that, okay, my child is just processing information differently, and you look at it that way, then it's not this huge chasm.
Pass on a lot of love. It seems like there's some amazingly talented geniuses out there that are living with autism.
They say kids are pretty intuitive, and I think with Turner he's even more intuitive about people.
I think the biggest thing is not to get so hung up on the diagnosis, just see it as a way for him to get help.
Early intervention with kids who have autism absolutely produces tremendous benefits. So we want to identify these little guys as early as we possibly can.
You're going to have to maybe even show a little extra patience than you might with a typical child.
For sure.
And if you know that, if you go in, you're just going to have to just relax and let things come. Both you and the child are going to be happier.
Between the medical community, the school community, there's definitely a lot of programs that can help families and children with autism.
Try to learn as much as you can about it, just so that you have a good understanding of, what they're going through.
We have a library of information. We're happy to send parents a parent packet, but there's all kinds of resources on the internet too.
Just getting that knowledge and finding a support group, I think it's been great with being involved with the Autism Society.
What I've learned is there's an incredible range, of skills and talents that population has.
You just need to embrace them for who they are, and I think that's what I would really tell other people.
Don't put this pressure on you that you have this deadline that you have to carry your kid by kindergarten. It's probably not going to happen, and there's probably going to be things that we're just going to deal with Turner, his little quirks and idiosyncrasies, and we have them too, and we still put up with each other.
And as we have more and more success stories, I think we will see people with ASD being more integrated into our society, and it won't be a big deal.
Thank you very much. This is more than we ever would have wished for.